The South African Human Rights Commission in the Eastern Cape will be investigating the deaths of 21 teenagers at Enyobeni tavern. The youngsters were reportedly celebrating the end of mid-year exams at the East London drinking spot. The commission has been at the scene since yesterday to ascertain the exact circumstances surrounding this tragedy. Let's bring in now the head of the commission in the province. That's Dr. Eileen Carter, who joins us via our video link this morning. Dr. Carter, it's lovely to have you on the program, albeit on this devastating story. Let me just begin by getting a sense from you what you were able to find when you visited the scene of this tragedy.
Morning, Ayanda, and morning to your viewers. Yes, we were on the scene on Sunday, a few hours after the tragic accident or incident. And the purpose for that was to basically, number one, express our condolences to the family and the community who has been faced with this tragedy. And number two, just to get a feeling on the ground of what the community response was. And at this stage, Ayanda, our mandate is very specific. We are not a law enforcement agency. We are going to look at what oversight mechanisms were in place and are in place when we are looking at the best interest of the child principle. So at that stage, we were informed that there has been reports to the local authorities about this specific tavern by the local community, but the concerns that were expressed on Sunday was that the community was also up in arms about where do they in fact report this to, because there has been no response to their concerns.
What this moment has also done is expose all kinds of social ills that also don't work in the interest of the child, as it were. I mean, you know, there's alcohol abuse, there's a lapse in enforcing the law, there's perhaps arguably a level of neglect. Potentially, your investigation into this could be quite widespread. How has that informed, you know, how far you're willing to go?
You know, Ayanda, I think you're touching on a lot of very important elements there that speak directly to social cohesion. Now, we have specific mandates in respect of protecting human rights, but also promoting human rights. And we have to now unpack to see where have we failed as a nation when we have a look at Section 28 of the Constitution, which says the best interest of the child principle is paramount in making decisions affecting them. Now, in unpacking that, we have to have a look. Does the liquor board take into consideration the children in the vicinity, the community in the vicinity? Does the bylaws respond to the best interest of the child from a human rights-based perspective? So we need to unpack a lot of oversight issues. Now, Ayanda, as an oversight body as well, we very much know that we are reliant upon people reporting. Now, we've noted the liquor board suspending the license of the tavern owner. And we also note that they have indicated that they've not received complaints from this specific facility. And it does reflect that we need the community to speak to us. We need the community to respond to us with their concerns when it pertains to the rights of children and when it pertains to human rights. That then gives us an opportunity as an organization to put the machinery in place to have a look what's going on.
Yeah, with that in mind, have you been able to ascertain the form that this probe will take? We know in the past the Human Rights Commission has opted, for instance, to have hearings given the scale of what they're looking into. Is that a possibility in this case?
No, absolutely, Ayanda, but a hearing, unfortunately, will take a bit of time to plan. We're not deciding to take a lot of time on this one. We have decided we want to engage with the relevant stakeholders as soon as next week to sit around a table, to unpack what has happened, and to also explore how is this affecting the larger South African constituency. How are we responding now through this tragedy in order to prevent another one?
Yeah. Speaking of that, typically you find that there's more than one tavern, for instance, where something like this can take place. Many will point out that it's quite telling that children as young as 13 years could be allowed into this environment. Some of them could die, and the dancing could continue. That says a lot about perhaps even just the culture in certain areas. Again, you know, it does, I guess, open us up to questions around whether or not your focus will be specifically on Enyobeni or whether it's worth broadening that to any other establishment similar to this one.
You know what, Ayanda, I think this tragedy has definitely put a microscope on some of the social ills. We see every weekend on social media the reports of liquor usage and liquor abuse. And our kids are on social media. They have access to the footage. They have access to images of alcohol use and abuse. And we need to ask ourselves the question, are we romanticizing these taverns? Are we romanticizing kids going out and having fun in this way? And at the end of the day, we have the kids leaving these facilities in body bags. We have to ask ourselves these questions, and we have to ask ourselves, are we doing enough? At this stage, Ayanda, unfortunately, I don't think so. And it's a tragedy, also looking at the fact that we're celebrating Youth Month this month.
There are people who are obviously trying to find culpability wherever it may exist. Really urgent questions are being asked of the adults in the room, and I mean that quite literally, when this was taking place. How important is it to get their version of events in order to get to the bottom of how to prevent this from happening again?
You know what, we will definitely sit around the table with all stakeholders, and that includes the South African Council for Churches, that includes the local councillors, it includes the adults in the room, Ayanda. And what we're not going to do is we're going to place blame. We're not going to assess a matter before we have the evidence at hand. We're going to allow the authorities also to conduct their own investigation. Ours would now be to sit around a table and see how do we prevent this from occurring again. Yeah.
You say you want to meet with these stakeholders as soon as next week. Any idea how long this might take you?
Well, we're putting in place the mechanisms that we require. We do want to give an opportunity for the families and for the relevant stakeholders to have a respectful funeral and to not jump this occasion. We want to have the process be concluded, and then we will address this through an administrative process as well. We luckily have met very recently with the Premier of the province and with the MECs, and we do have their cooperation in promoting human rights within this province specifically.
All right. Certainly a lot of important conversations yet to take place. Dr. Eileen Carter, thanks very much for speaking to us. She's the head of the South African Human Rights Commission in the Eastern Cape.